Good evening and welcome to Going for Two. This is the only YouTube podcast in human recorded history to feature a male and female host drinking our way through the important topics of the day, as long as they touch the football world and not in that way. I am Zach Law and this is Sharona Stormborn. This week, Sharona brings the big beer and I bring the big guest. I'm going to let our guest pronounce his last name because I'm bad at that sort of thing. We're going to bring on Mr. Sal. He is an FSWA award winner and nominee. That's Two Tucks Reynolds, who co-runs twoquarterbacks.com, which is your go-to site for all things Mark Sanchez. Welcome to the show, Sal.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Sharona. Thanks for
Hey.
having me.
Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
I know Zach's been trying to get me on the show for a while, but my schedule has pretty much been non-conducive to podcast appearances for the past year and a half. But it's been opening up lately, so I've been able to actually say yes to going on people's shows now.
That's good, but don't spread it too thin. I feel like can we have you exclusive for at least 24 hours? Can we have that? That's all
I can promise you about 72-hour exclusive.
Now we're gonna pause the interview process and talk with Sharona here, who is about to make her pick, because we're gonna talk tonight mostly about the Scotty Fish Bowl 480, the crazy 40 drafts that are going on right now, although I guess 39, because one's finished. So what's happening, Sharona? Can you talk about the makeup of your team, and can you let me tell you who to pick and then ignore it?
I'm mostly doing this for Sal. Let me see if I can figure out how to screen share. Here we go.
Professionals here. We're professionals.
This is my current team. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
You drafted
Okay.
Derrick Henry on purpose? Oh.
On purpose, in the third round even.
Oh, wow.
Listen,
He just went in the 11th at ours, but hey, exotic smash mouth. You know what? Stick with guns. Do it.
Nobody had drafted him. I looked and we're way behind. It might have been the fourth. Anyway, I looked and we're way behind, and I know that was so early, but I was like, there might be one person out there who's going to do it, and I want him. And I think he's perfect for this format, for this scoring format, and so I went and got him, and so there. That is my if you want your man, go get him. Okay, so this is
what I hear.
This is, let me pull up. This is, you've seen my team. This is who I can take. Let me see if I can.
I'm wondering if your man Delaney is on the list. Is he available?
He's already been. He got taken already. So those are.
This is an important thing to bring up to people who are doing the Scotty Fish Bowl, because they do ADP and there are lots of rookie drafts going on. Rookies jump to the top of the list really quick. I think that's why Derrick Henry went 301 in one league. I think that's why Laquan Treadwell went 33rd overall, because I saw the Scott Fish Bowl ADP, and he was taken once 33rd overall. So you got to scroll a little bit.
Yeah, you
to
do.
Make your picks.
You do.
I think actually MFL should screw with you and upside down it, because if you're just using the ADP crutch, you should make the occasional bad pick.
So I don't have a second quarterback yet, and I don't have a tight end. I've got 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. And I don't know if does it show me scrolling? I'm scrolling down.
Sorry, that a context quote. I don't have a tight end. Anyway. Oh my gosh, Dak Prescott! Come on, do it.
Look at how these
He's named
are ranked.
after a guy from Star Wars movie.
It's so weird. Those are the quarterbacks. Here are the tight ends currently out there.
I've been sorting by 2015 points.
Have you?
Kind of weeds out the rookies.
Okay. There's the names.
Gary Barnidge.
I know. I've been looking at him. Richard Rodgers, another guy I'm looking at. I find it hard to believe that Ben Watson's going to have the year that he had last year. So I'm in kind of, no, I don't think so. Let me put it back to all. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, it says New York Jets, but he's not a Jet yet, right?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Who knows if he will be?
I think he went in like the 10th round in our league, and I was kind of surprised, but that was, I think Justin Wynn, one of the RotoViz guys, and he took Marcus Mariota like in the 5th round. Like he's on the Marcus train.
So if I were taking a second quarterback, which I've got not quite back-to-back, but almost back-to-back picks, because I have 7.11 and then I've got 8.02. So I'm going to be picking again relatively soon. Kind of hard to get sniped when you're in that situation. If I were inclined to take a second quarterback right now, we're in the 7th, 8th round. Looking at this list, I would probably take. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will end back with the Jets, but I think I would probably take, given this format, I think I would take Alex Smith.
Uh-oh.
You're not going to hear any arguments from me about taking Alex Smith.
Alex Smith is kind of like a boring pick, but he does, like, since running attempts give you points.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by Ryan Tannehill. I think every year we're teased by him, but it's like Adam Gase, he made Jay Cutler look like a good quarterback with no receivers at all, so he's a possibility too. I've seen him go in this area.
So
Alex had the 4th most rushing attempts and 4th most rushing yards from a quarterback last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great pick. With all due respect to our buddy Mike, who said that why not draft Tom Brady high and then look to a lesser value quarterback in Alex Smith. I think Alex Smith is the better value in SFB 480 when you look at the scoring format and when you consider that Tom Brady in all likelihood is going to miss those 4 games. And you know what? Bill Belichick being who he is, if Jimmy Garoppolo plays well, I know he's Tom Brady, but Tom Brady got his job by virtue of Drew Bledsoe being out. And, I don't know. I don't have that that same confidence that that Mike has. All right, so that's who I'm going to take. I'm going to go ahead and take Alex Smith.
I feel like it was destiny that I was on this episode.
Alex Smith, he's so dreamy.
I love him. I do. I've always defended him. I think that, I'm very happy with that pick at the spot that I got him. Huh? So, all right. So I'll do my next pick. You guys don't have to, you don't have to help me with that one.
I really liked Jimmy Garoppolo and The Truth About Cats and Dogs. I thought that was an underrated romantic comedy from the 90s.
I'm very interested to see what he does.
If the draft started a week later, how far would Tom Brady drop, Mr. 2 quarterbacks?
Let's see. He's going right now. He is the quarterback 9 based on Scotty Fish ADP. The highest he's been picked looks like 28th overall, and the lowest I'm seeing him is at 70 overall. With the 4-game suspension, just because quarterback is such a deep position, and some people will be scared by the 4-game suspensions. Plus, they can get Jimmy Garoppolo later on, or someone like Alex Smith or Jay Cutler, or Teddy Bridgewater even later before those first 4 weeks. If we were doing this draft like a week later and we kind of soaked up Tom Brady news, I could see Brady falling into like round 6, round 7 in this format.
We're going to get to see all Sharona screens now. It's awesome. See who makes it to the mentions list. So before we go totally, Scott Fishbowl, Sal, can you kind of talk about how you decided to become Mr. 2 quarterbacks, and then how you smartly, decided, hey, 2 quarterbacks, why not have 2 co-owners for the 2 quarterback site?
So how I got into quarterback writing was that I kind of was getting bored of just writing about regular fantasy football, which I was doing at the time for a New York Giants blog. But my main fantasy format of choice was two quarterback leagues, and every year I would get frustrated by the lack of consistent two quarterback content.
Wow. Some kind of crazy noise going on.
Yeah, so every
You
week.
don't have to keep sharing, Sharona. I mean, you can.
Oh, am I? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
Oh,
I'm
look
sorry.
at you. You're up again. That's nice.
I am up again. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Whoopsies. Yeah, I'm going to take a tight end.
She's focused, laser focused. She can do this. She multitasks all the time. She pretends to pay attention to me.
All right. So here, Gary Barnidge or Richard Rodgers or Jason Witten.
Gary Barnidge. Even with the Scotty Fish Bowl playoffs starting in Week 13 when the Browns have a bye, I would still go Barnidge there.
Okay. I've got Zach Ertz is still there, Ben Watson, Antonio Gates, Eric Ebron's still out there, Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to, if you want, even get Ebron later on, maybe on the way back in 09, or like you mentioned, Kyle Rudolph even later than that.
Yeah. I am probably not going. I'm going to shy away from Kyle Rudolph because when I get burned, it's hard for me to go back to the well. I was telling my friend Jennifer Eakins last night, the only fantasy football player I've ever been burned on and gone back to that well is Jermichael Finley.
Jermichael Finley. Yeah, a little run there.
And today just seems to be the day for tight end references that you've forgotten about early on. Oh, there's a Frank Wycheck reference. Now there's Jermichael Finley reference.
It's like is this your video game sound or something, Sharona? It's like the weird, like someone's running the vacuum.
Somebody's mowing. I'm sorry, guys. It's the neighbors.
It's like we're in Quantum Leap.
Who mows this time of year? Actually, though, Sharona, could you undo that pick? Because I took Gary Barnidge, and I'm pretty sure you just ruined him for this year.
I'm sorry. No, I can't. What was that dude's name? Bobby Rainey. Bobby Rainey.
Oh, so yeah. Sal, go ahead and tell the Bobby Rainey story since we've stepped all over Sal's story, and we will get back to this.
Let me tell you
in about 30 minutes, we will get right back to that last question I asked you. Okay.
So I was in a startup dynasty keeper league, and I had so many injuries. I lost somebody, and I needed to pick up a running back, and somebody offered me a trade for Bobby Rainey to give up a second-round draft selection in the second year and some other lesser stuff. And I was like, I don't know, Zach. What do you think? Should I do this? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not good at trades, so what do you think? Oh, you should do it. You should do it. You should do it. This was on a Thursday. I don't know if you recall the infamous shit show, pardon my French, that was the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Thursday night football game. Bobby Rainey proceeded to fumble 3 times in the first 5 minutes of the game and was a complete and utter atrocity up until the fourth quarter when he got me some garbage points. But ever since then, I do not listen to Zach.
I'm surprised she did before, but
it took that long?
I had to give her a reason. The funny thing, though, is you traded like a second-round pick in a rookie draft the next year for a league that disbanded.
It folded. I know it folded, but you never know.
You got him for peanuts. You got him for nothing. And
no, I didn't. The heartache was not worth it. I mean, because I was, like, stressing.
That was like, welcome to here's what fantasy football garbage is all about, because I'm pretty sure I live tweeted that game because I started Bobby Rainey, and somehow he ended up scoring like 14 points because he caught like 8 4-yard passes in that last drive. And it was like, yeah, another kid for 3 yards.
I think by that time I was crying in my beer somewhere. It was awful.
Seriously.
Whew.
So how can you, well, let's get back to the origin story, you know, how you became the dark co-lord of the 2-quarterback life.
All right, so like as I was saying, I mainly played in 2 quarterback fantasy football leagues, and every offseason I get ready for my research, and the only content you can find is the one draft strategy for 2 quarterback leagues every season. and then just done after that. Like, no one would write about it in season. So I just kind of thought to myself, if nobody else is writing this type of fantasy content, why don't I just start writing it? Because I imagine I can't be the only one out there that plays in 2-quarterback leagues that's frustrated by the lack of 2-quarterback content. So I just decided to start my own 2-quarterback fantasy football blog, throw out articles out there that nobody would read, try to like weasel my way in on Twitter conversations when nobody was following me, and just doing what everybody does when they first start writing about fantasy football. And because I didn't have to deal with competing with like hundreds and thousands of other fantasy writers and fantasy sites out there putting out the same type of content, I was able to kind of like weave my way into the industry a little bit because I was doing something unique and different that you couldn't find anywhere else. And from there, Denny Carter reached out to me and pointed me in the direction of XN Sports, who brought me on as a 2QB writer. And just from then on, I've just kept pounding away at the 2-quarterback life.
2-quarterback life. And then you just happened to fall into the Scott Fish Bowl, right? Were you in the league in the past?
I was in the Scott Fish Bowl in 2013, my very first year when I was in the industry. And then the next 2 years, I came on as a ringer because I didn't sign on to play those last 2 years, where I took over a team that quit like pretty much week 1 or week 2. They just stopped signing into their league. And then I had to replace an owner in draft last year. So this is my first time actually drafted in the Scott Fish Bowl in 3 years.
Oh, so you're like the fantasy football version of the person who sits down in the Oscar seats, like when people go to the bathroom, you're like, I got it.
Yeah, I was basically
milk duds on your seat, or you're leaving your beverage,
I was basically a seat filler.
But a seat filler in a wonderful way. This is my 3rd year in the Scott Fish Bowl, and years ago, I took like Andrew Luck number 2, so I went quarterback early, and it kind of blew up. No, I took Aaron Rodgers, I think. The team was bad, and last year I waited on quarterbacks. I'm pretty sure I got Cam Newton during the peak of his drop. Like, that's when Kelvin Benjamin got hurt, and he was maybe like a 5th or 6th rounder, and it seemed like a reach. He did well, and I got Ty God, really late, and actually had a pretty good season. So it's fun to see the different strategy. That's what I like about Scott Fish Bowl, and just because you have 11 starters, so you can try to focus on one position, but it's really hard.
Yeah, that's what's great about the mad genius of the Scott Fish Bowl is, like, you don't like quarterbacks. You think it's a super flex, so you don't have to worry about getting 2 quarterbacks. But a super flex league is basically a 2-quarterback league, and that super flex spot is best suited for a quarterback because they're going to score the most points. You want to go 0 RB, except no running backs get that 0.25 carry. You want to load up on wide receivers. You can start up to 7 of them. You don't want to draft 2 tight ends, but it's tight end premium, and you can start up to 5 of them. So there really is no one set strategy. And we've kind of seen that if you look at the Scott Fish Bowl ADP, just how varied some of these picks are and their standard deviations, like how high one player goes compared to how low he goes in a different draft. And like I say, it's 40 unique drafts all going on at the same time, and it's just crazy to follow along with it.
And how has your draft gone? Like, where is your league right now, and what's your team look like?
Sure, let's see. I believe we're in round 12 now.
Ooh, me too. I'm like 2 picks away. I'm very excited. By the way, RG3 just went like 1209.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He was not on my pre-draft list because I have 1 quarterback in the 12th round, which is crazy in this league. And I'm like, I'm holding off.
Let's see. I'm in the Patrick Swayze division. I'm wearing my.
Of course you are.
I'm wearing my Roadhouse T-shirt in honor of that.
I love that movie.
Oh, it's a great movie.
I loved him.
All right, so let me see. I got my league up right now. We are at pick 12. 12-11 is off the board, so we're just waiting for 12-12 to come up. And my team, I've kind of taken a little bit of a balanced approach. I've kind of tried to go with like best player available, kind of soak up the tight ends for a tight end premium. So I have Russell Wilson and Drew Brees at quarterback. David Johnson and Jay Ajayi at running back. And I have Eric Decker, John Brown, Tavon Austin, and Kamar Aiken at receiver. So I've kind of just trying to go for like those high floor guys because I kind of waited on that position for a while. I've just been hammering tight ends lately. I got Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen, Zach Miller, and Eric Ebron. And our good friend George Rotohack is kind of going at me for taking all the tight ends in our league.
So you went 4. Yeah, I think it was a. I hope no one's upset because I was like cheating on you and your site because you have all the stuff. But I was reading like RotoViz, and they had an article about how in the league like this, going for elite tight ends when you get a point per reception makes sense. So my first 9 picks, I took 4 tight ends. So I am tight end crazy.
Yeah, we had Scott Smith of RotoViz wrote a couple of guest pieces on our site about the he wrote this one article, like tips on how to navigate the draft, and one of his tips was on the tight end position, where he was using this year's scoring based on last year's points results. And if you combine the receivers and the tight ends together, 8 of the top 24 would have been tight ends under the newest scoring. And let's see, Gronk, Delaney, Jordan Reed, Gary Barnidge would have finished at 7, 8, 9, and 10 under your scoring with a tight end premium. So it makes sense to take a tight end over a receiver when you're getting to like the mid to later rounds, because those tight ends, based on the scoring, will most likely outscore the wide receivers. But no one's really kind of caught up with that based on the ADP, because tight ends are still going later and later compared to the wide receivers.
Not me, man. I was paying attention. For once. It didn't happen very often.
So do you think that I took Gary Barnidge too high at 8.02?
No, I think that was a good time to take it, because based on the tight ends that were left there, I think you reached the end of that tier.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I was thinking too. I was just like stressed.
Well, yeah, everybody.
You never know.
Everybody in my league went quarterback really early. Like I got the first quarterback. I got Phillip Rivers in the 7th, and I don't know. I guess I just started with tight ends. Like I went Jordan Reed in the 3rd. Like I initially, my first pick, I had number 2. I was gonna take Gronk.
Oh yeah.
But then I was like, you know what, running back, and let's go all Evan Silva. I don't remember if I asked Sigmund Bloom last week, like, have you ever personally affected a player's like ADP?
You did.
Evan Silva has affected Ezekiel Elliott. Like Ezekiel Elliott might have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He's a 1st round pick now, and I took him number 2 overall.
Yeah, I've seen him go number 1 overall in a couple of these SFB drafts.
Oh yeah, wow. Okay.
So yeah, Ezekiel Elliott, Doug Martin number 2, then Jordan Reed I reached a little bit for the tight end. But when you're drafting kind of on the ends, it's like you're getting guys who dropped and then you're reaching.
Yeah, like I was picking from the 12th slot, and it was a running back heavy draft in hindsight, because I took Russell Wilson and Drew Brees with 2 of my first 3 picks. I just thought the value for Drew Brees, basically as a 4th rounder, was too much to pass up. But then it turns out I was in one of those leagues where quarterbacks weren't really going and running backs were going like crazy. So if I could do it over again, I probably would have switched my first 2 picks and went David Johnson and Lamar Miller. So that would have had like 2 workhorse running backs. But, I mean, it's just the way your league goes. Everyone's going to be different. So
that's one of those unanswered questions about football and fantasy that we're going to find out real quick. Are the Texans going to give Lamar Miller the workload that the Dolphins were afraid to do?
Yeah.
Because the Texans just said, you know what, Arian Foster, you take all the touches when he was healthy, which was rare. And then they had Alfred Blue and a bunch of journeyman guys. So it's like Lamar Miller, he crushed our team. That was like fantasy football thinking. But anyway. But he's looking good. People are loving on him.
I mean, if they don't give the touch to Lamar Miller, who are they going to give him in that backfield?
I feel like an airplane's landing in your backyard, Sharona.
No, I'm sorry. I've been so bad tonight.
Go out there, listen, dude.
I had it set on me, and I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry about that. Lamar Miller was still on the board when I took Derrick Henry, and I was like, I should take Lamar Miller. But I just, you know what? Listen, I think you should stand by your man, and I believe in Derrick Henry. Zach, you've listened to me for weeks now talk about how great I think Derrick Henry's going to be in what the Titans want to do, and I know our good friend Sig does not agree with me. He doesn't think that either DeMarco Murray or Derrick Henry are suited to the offense that they're going to run. But I think that I disagree, and I think that he's going to be a touchdown. I think he's going to be, in a way, the Jerome Bettis to Willie Parker, a.k.a. DeMarco Murray, sort of. I mean, I think it's going to be sort of that kind of thing, although I think that you're going to see Derrick Henry do a little bit more than what Jerome Bettis did that year. So, I was more comfortable doing that because I just don't know about Lamar Miller. I just don't know yet.
But Lamar Miller is like going in the first round or second round. So
well,
I wonder if there's a different running back who
if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you too?
You'll probably be okay. I've seen a lot of movies like Patrick Swayze jumps off a bridge. He's gonna be fine. So lots of bridges in Vancouver, right?
I mean, you got to believe in your team, and and besides, I don't want to be in a position to be rooting for the damn Texans.
Yeah, that was some of the most weird moments when you'd have like Andre Johnson going against the Titans and he'd just destroy them. Like he'd get 200 yards against them every time.
Yeah, and it's so weird because like the only year that I ever was able to get Andre Johnson consistently was, of course, the year he went to the Colts and sucked so bad. Broke my heart.
Man, people did believe in him, but one thing that I think that's been pretty consistent with the Scotty Fish Bowl drafts is that wide receivers are dropping. Like I got Brandon Marshall in the 5th, Emmanuel Sanders in the 8th, and Willie Snead in the 10th. And I feel like that's one strategy I did that actually worked out. Except if you had a top pick, it's really hard to pass on those super high guys. But I don't know. Do you think, Sal, that like wide receiver is deeper than ever, and especially in a league like this where you get that half point per reception that maybe they're not quite?
Yeah, there's been just like a glut of like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 types available almost at every time I've been on the board to pick in these mid rounds. That it's like if I wanted to take 1 or 2 guys, I would be okay missing out on them and going on a different position just because I know somebody who's just around the same value as that guy would be available later on. And like you mentioned, the 0.5 PPR, I think it's kind of pushed everybody to avoid the receivers for a little bit and go on that full old school RB strategy from back in the day where all the running backs were valuable. But like we mentioned before, every league is going to be different. Everybody's going to have a different strategy. So I've seen some zero RB teams that have turned out really nice with their wide receiver depth, and there's still going to be a few running backs later on to pick out. But like those Devontae Parkers, Tyler Lockett's, Eric Decker, John Brown, Kevin White, Tavon Austin, Deshaun Jackson. You just can go on and on and on and just list off a bunch of wide receivers that you'd be okay with from like round 7 to 12 round or 13 or something like that.
I took Tyler Lockett I took DeAndre Hopkins pretty high. I took Tyler Lockett at round 6, I think. And my thought process with that was because of the special teams. And when you look at the special team scoring in SFB 480, it's attractive. And so those in terms of the wide receiver, and even I took David Johnson because of his special teams ability just to get those added points.
Yeah, I mean, with all these scoring rules, everybody's trying to look for a way to get an advantage somewhere. You mentioned kick returners. Someone like Tavon Austin gets those carries, those added bonuses, rushing quarterbacks. We're all just trying to find that unique way to get an advantage over everybody else.
Yeah.
So Sal, who are some of your favorites who might be this year's, like Tyrod Taylor or even Blaine Gabbert, like guys who people might take at the very end of drafts or might be available? It's hard to project waivers in this league since we're 22 rounds, but I don't know, some of your like late round targets that you're loving, so we can steal them. We can't steal them from you because we're not in your league, so talk away.
Everybody else in my league watching can steal them. But,
that's right.
I think you mentioned Blaine Gabbert. He's the guy I've been targeting as my QB3 just because based on how most drafts are going, by the time you're looking at spending a value pick on a QB3 and not paying up to get a QB3, like, not getting one in round 6, 7, or 8, and kind of waiting until like round 13, 14. He tends to be the guy that's left on the board. Last year, this is not Scott Fish Bowl scoring, but this is just like regular standard scoring. Blaine Gabbert finished as a top 20 fantasy quarterback in 7 of his 8 starts. And he has, right now, he's going at pick around, let me pull this up right now. He has an ADP of 137 going after Sam Bradford and Jared Goff. And now he's proven that he could put up decent QB2 numbers, and if you want him to be your QB3 as like a bye-week replacement or a streaming matchup, and in Chip Kelly's offense now, he's the guy I've been targeting. And he is the guy I will be targeting in this draft. So if everybody who is in my league listening to this, I'm going to draft Blaine Gabbert, so if you want him, you should get him now.
Jump on him. Yeah, I have one pick between me and my pick, and guess who's number 1 on my on my ADP. The thing is with these later quarterbacks, like it feels like you have to take, because I did some of these Scott Fish Bowl mocks, and in one league somebody took like Bradford and Wentz back to back because you're like, well, and then you have the Philadelphia quarterback. Watch Chase Daniel from Missouri take over, and then if you get Mark Sanchez, talk about a guy who's available late, you probably need to get Paxton Lynch too. And even if you get Blaine Gabbert, you're like, well, Colin Kaepernick. Because during the whole Chip Kelly craziness, which is still going on, one thing you knew is like this quarterback's going to get a lot of carries. Well, guess who doesn't run the ball ever because he doesn't have any knees? That's Sam Bradford. Mm-hmm. So now you got a guy in the Chip Kelly offense who can run, and Blaine Gabbert can run a little bit. Colin Kaepernick can too, but it appears that he's got the big salad fork sticking out of his back. Seems like he's pretty much done, but we'll see, Mm-hmm. Was it like Landry Jones, a guy like him? He could sneak up and take a few weeks for you. Matt Castle, just kidding. That's not going to happen.
Especially it all depends too how your quarterback draftings played out to this point. Like if you're somebody that went with 2 early quarterbacks, you're not going to be as concerned about getting a quarterback 3 early, so you can bypass all the mid-tier guys. But if you're somebody that waited at the quarterback position and didn't take 2 quarterbacks early, you're kind of looking at those mid-rounds, and it's like you're going to force yourself to get 2 or 3 guys in the mid-rounds, which will alter your draft strategy later on because then you're bypassing those receivers and running backs and tight ends.
Guess who I took as my QB3 last year? I mean, scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Let me guess.
A guy who was Peyton Manning's backup who ended up starting.
Rocky.
Well,
Cash money, Brock.
Funny you mention the Broncos' backup quarterbacks. I'm just looking at the Scott Fish Bowl ADP, and somebody went ahead and picked up Trevor Siemian.
Oh, yeah?
He's the very last quarterback on the ADP list. So he's been drafted once. So that just shows you how deep the Scott Fish Bowl is. Like, we're drafting guys who are technically third-string quarterbacks now who might have like a start or 2 in them this year, which makes sense because last year 53 different quarterbacks started at least 1 game during the season.
Well, there have been 2 kind of off-the-field incidents that have affected draft position in these drafts. Number 1's Mr. Brady, of course, having a suspension probably after most people already drafted him. But and another running back who made a little bit of a mistake on Instagram recently. So scoring system is important in fantasy leagues. Now, for the people who drafted Duke Johnson early, thanks to Isaiah Crowell's Instagram shenanigans, is this a point per concussion league?
With Scott Fish, who knows?
Because Duke Johnson, he's got that. He's not quite feature back size, but people were. I mean, he went in the 5th round in our draft, and that was something I wanted to bring up. Like wide receivers are dropping, but like receiving running backs are dropping too. Like Charles Sims is getting taken later. Guys like Bilal Powell or Theo Riddick, and even the mighty what's his name with the Patriots, who's Deion Lewis.
Deion Lewis. I almost picked him. Oh, I came so close to picking him.
Uh-oh. I'm getting a meow at my door because
I heard it.
The guys are like, closed doors, not allowed.
I had 2 Kit Kats who
like
really wanted in here.
My cats aren't fans. What can I say?
No, you bring up a good point. I think because of the .25 per carry bonus, Everybody is just, I think, maybe even overvalued those workhorse running backs a little bit, and devalued the pass catching running backs, which I guess it makes sense because it's only 0.5 PPR. But some of these pass catching backs will still have a role in these offenses, and they're still going to get 0.5 points per reception. So, like someone like Duke Johnson, Deion Lewis, we might not see them go as early as we would in like normal PPR drafts, but I think they still have value in this format. And if they're getting pushed down so that all those 200 plus carry type running backs can get pushed up, that's fine with me. Because if you're waiting on running back position, those are going to be the types of guys that you're going to get later on, or like the backups like D'Angelo Williams or LeGarrette Blount.
So why did you decide to really like step up the SFB coverage and become like the go-to site? And what can people find on your site, who are currently drafting and needing a little help?
All right, so
after you make your next pick, tell them where to go. No, I'm just
kidding. I wish I was on the clock. I'm not on the clock yet. I still have a few more picks to go. I just remember how much fun like following along with the SFB 360 was last year. And it's like, there's 360 teams. Most of them are going to be analysts. Then there's going to be the fans. And the popularity of it on Twitter, everybody tweeting their picks, talking about the draft, just getting ready for the event itself. And then the explosion on day one of the Scotty Fish Bowl was insane to watch. And I knew there wasn't any site out there that was going to be covering the Scotty Fish Bowl like 24/7. Like, I'm not saying 2QBs is covering 24/7, but we put a lot of emphasis.
Pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, the other day I was up until 6:30 editing articles for the morning. So I'm going to be happy when the Scotty Fish Bowl is over so I can go back to a regular sleep pattern, kind of like Scott. But like, I just knew nobody was going to be covering it, to the extent that it should be covered, because it's 480 teams. It's the middle of July. People are starved for fantasy football content, and this is going to be the super flex draft of the year. It's the draft of the off season. So I just know I talked to the other co-founders of the site, Greg Smith and Joshua Lake, and I said, hey, we should look into covering the Scotty Fish Bowl as much as we can. So we came up with a plan. We talked to Scott a lot. Scott is always willing to help out with whatever you need. He was on board, so we just figured out a strategy of what we wanted to do. And I remember Zach's interviews from last year. Like, maybe he might need some help bringing those back this year, not doing it all by himself.
Yeah, help. So, help is doing most of the work. That's what you call help. Good.
So we put those up on the site again because those are a lot of fun. People just like.
They are fun. They're very good.
Did
we get Sharona on that list? So we might need to,
I did one last year. You can just do my one.
Just repeat, rinse. Jordy Nelson was like my best draft pick. He was going to be awesome this year.
I did. Oh my God. I had him. I had Kelvin Benjamin. Sal, in one league that I was in, we had 5 slots for IR players. And by the end of the year, I had 8 or 9 players that I could have put on IR and had exceeded the total number of slots. It was bad.
I know they had I thought IR slots were more of a baseball kind of thing, but yeah, Sharona went heavy. I mean, last year you go heavy on like the Colts and the Packers. Everybody pat you in the back, but man, that was the thing I looked at. Like when I looked at my number 2 pick, I was like, man, most of the running backs who went number 2 last year were not a good idea. Like it was Jamal Charles and like Eddie Lacy and everybody who picked Andrew Luck early. Oh my gosh, they went well. Even when he came back and beat the Titans, after that it was a rough time. But basically, when you pick number 2, like there's not a lot of upside. It's usually downside. But so I'll go with the rookie and the Cowboys, and I could be with FF to Jen on Sunday, rooting for that to happen.
So, you guys think it's better to have like a later selection than it is to have an early selection?
I mean, I think if everybody had their own preference of choosing, I'd prefer to be somewhere in the middle. Because, you don't have to pick one of the elite guys right away and then wait forever. You're still going to get a really good player in the mid-rounds. And then your second pick is going to be, decently quick. You're not going to be waiting forever at that point. It's like, because I'm picking at 112, and I get to get those 2 picks out of the way early. But then I'm waiting for 2 full rounds until I pick again. And it's either I kind of set the tone at the end for the draft, or I completely miss out on all the runs.
Yeah.
I feel like the turn is good. Weren't you at 11, Sharona? Right, you were 11 and 12. I was at 2. Yeah, I don't like the
I'm at
early
11.
round. Like maybe in the middle would work, but I kind of like the end because you end up getting like David Johnson and Nuke. Nuke is like a mid first rounder in not this format. In this format, he goes a little bit later, but
Yeah, I got him in round 3, I think.
Not to like because Hopkins did really well with like nothing at quarterback, and now at least he has a mediocre quarterback, and he plays the Titans twice. Although I'm not sure if he does. I think one of those games is like week 17, so you only get one. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll bring Brandon Whedon back to beat the Titans at week 17 again. Oh gosh.
I think I got good value. The only one. I jumped on Derrick Henry, but again, I was like, somebody's going to do it, somebody's going to take him, and I'm going to regret not going ahead and doing it, and again, if you feel that strongly, Tyrod, I just knew somebody was going to take him, and when he was still there, and then Tyler Lockett, I had already looked, at taking him because of the special teams stuff, and he was still there when I went to pick, so.
Matt Harmon, baby.
Yeah.
That's his guy this year. Like last year, it was
I had him last
Allen
year.
Robinson, and I'm pretty sure the co-host of mine on this show had Allen Robinson and dropped him after week 1. Did that happen? It was not my advice, by the way.
Me?
Because he was so bad in week 1 last year. I think you mentioned that you cut him. I didn't start him in week 2 when he blew up because. But
I loved him though. He was a guy that I had on the list of, wide receivers I wanted the Titans to look at, and if I did, it was because I was in such dire straits because of injuries or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, I love the guy, and I probably was very sad to have to do that if I did.
Broke my heart.
Aww.
Well, Sal, what's your NFL? Do you have an NFL team affiliation?
I am a New York Giants fan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a friend who came up. Unfortunately, she was like from Philadelphia-ish, and she actually has a Giants tattoo on her ring finger. Pretty impressive.
Oh, okay.
You gotta love you some Eli. So is there some comeback on the Giants this year? Or they get a little younger in coaching, and maybe they can actually not suck this year like the entire NFC East last year?
I mean, you always hope as a football fan, but at the same time, I always go back to just the fact that I've seen them win 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, so I'm pretty much
with happy.
Eli. Eli's an interesting case. I always thought he was going to be like a value pick because he goes like in the mid QB2 tier, kind of at the end of QB1 tier. But we have these stat cards up on our site that Greg created that kind of shows how volatile of a performer Eli has been over the years, which kind of makes you think that his floor is a little bit scary compared to what his ceiling can be. But no, he still has Odell Beckham the third, which is appealing.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about all the coaching drama and the coaching change to a relatively unproven guy?
I mean, the nice thing is that they brought somebody that's been coaching the offense, and we've seen what that offense has been like under McAdoo the past couple of years. So I'm okay with the switch because it's not a complete turnover. They're making their most important player happy, who's Eli Manning. And that matters a lot in football. You always want your top guy to be in line with the system. I always thought it was kind of time for Tom Coughlin to go. It kind of sucked to see the way he was sent out packing. I understand the NFL is a business; it happens. So I'm not too. I'll say I am optimistic of the New York Giants season this year.
Okay. How many games do you think they'll win?
Maybe 6.
Okay. That's how many they won last year, right?
Yeah, I think they went 6 and 10. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. I don't know.
No, I think that they did.
Well, at least Peyton finally tied Eli. His last try.
I had a lot of fun watching Eli at Ole Miss, and the guy who coached him and made both he and Peyton so great, and I'm a big fan of, and so he's doing great things at Duke.
That's true.
Yes.
Duke actually is quality. Now, I had to ask this question of Sharona.
Uh-oh.
And maybe it's unfortunate to do this now. We're going to do just a very slight detour.
Oh.
So your reaction
no,
to Tim Duncan retiring as opposed to your reaction to Peyton Manning retiring. We'll talk. I think I brought up basketball like 3 shows in a row. Something's wrong with me. It's not just the beer. It's the summer. It's crazy time. Ball boy just got $10 million a year. Sorry, go ahead.
I am so sad to see Tim Duncan retire. I'm gonna cry. By far my favorite basketball player of all time, and he was just a guy who did everything right and did everything. We all have our athletes that we like and that we enjoy and that we think are the kind of the epitome of what it means to be that particular kind of player. And for me, it was Tim Duncan, and he was so great for so long, and he did it so graciously, and it was just such a great ambassador for the NBA. And I said that the NBA was dead to me, and I was kidding, but it's not going to be the same, at least not until maybe I find another player. But I think that there's a consensus that there's never going to be another Tim Duncan, and so I'm far more emotional about that than I am about Peyton Manning. Even though Peyton Manning is a great player too, and different sport, and he played for my alma mater, the school that I went to, and meant a lot to that institution and what have you. But you had time to prepare for both of them, but I'm far more emotional about Tim Duncan retiring.
I feel like it was 5 years in a row of wait, he's still in the league for someone who really doesn't pay attention to basketball. I mean, seriously, I watched like 4 minutes this year, but I had to give you the opportunity. You had to talk about it. I mean, 19 years and being like a forward/center, you're getting beaten 81 games a year plus playoffs because the Spurs every year made it a few rounds in the playoffs. They won 5 championships. Who's winning 5 championships? Is it Eli winning 5 championships? We hope, right?
Yeah. It's truly the end of an era, and he'll definitely, you saw a lot of people, saluting him as the best power forward of all time, but he did play kind of a swing position. Yeah, I mean, it was he did whatever the team needed him to do, and there's so many great stories coming back out about what he did behind the scenes, not seeking any glory, not wanting any glory, and I'm just really sad about it.
I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of basketball, but when the Tim Duncan retirement stories were coming out, and watching that video of him getting kicked out for laughing on the sideline, might be one of the top sports highlights I've seen in a long time.
I know. Yeah.
It was almost like the way the Colts got Peyton #1, then they got Luck #1, except they played at the same time with San Antonio because they sucked for 1 year and they got Tim Duncan like in the lottery, and they had a pretty solid team.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting how that whole thing went down because they got Pop in kind of a weird way too, and then they lucked into getting Tim Duncan, and those two had some moments, but they forged a great relationship, and because of that, they were able to become a very winning franchise. But they had some great players when Tim was early in the league and learning his way around. I mean, he had some great players around him, and then he became the great player around which they added, other good players. And so, yeah.
Very much like Eli, as I said. But with the Giants, we'll do a slight shift back to Giants land. There are 2 positions of the Giants that could really net some fantasy gold this year. So who's going to be their guy at running back, and then who's going to win the starting tight end job? Because I feel like that's another place you can get some value late in drafts.
Well, it looks like from all the beat reporter accounts, it's Rashad Jennings' job to lose at running back. Whether he keeps that all year is a different question. But he had his moments last year. It wasn't that bad of an RB2, RB3 type in fantasy. And that tends to be where he's getting drafted this year. He had a few like double-digit fantasy outings, especially at the end of the season. Those last 4 games, he scored between 10 to 23 fantasy points in a game, which for me running back too is not too shabby to get. So if there's any New York Giants running back that I would be drafting this year, it would be Rashad Jennings, and he seems to be a really good pick in the Scott Fish Bowl.
I like him.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to like him. I know a lot of people like to hate Rashad Jennings. They don't think he's that good at football, that he's not going to be a good fantasy asset. But he's proven that he can be a solid, dependable running back too. And sometimes that's all you really need. And in the Scott Fish Bowl, where you get that bonus points per carry, he's someone that might go overlooked a bit. That could be a workhorse running back if all chips fall in New York for this season. As for the tight end position, I have absolutely no idea. Everybody's been trying to guess if it's going to be Will Tye or if Larry Donnell is going to come back. And who is there? There's another guy too in the mix.
They drafted a guy out of South Carolina, right? Jarrell Adams. If you're drafting a Scott Fish Bowl, he'll be like 3rd on your ADP after like round 4. So watch out.
I mean, there's been a lot of hype on RotoViz for Will Tye and his potential. If I had to pick one, he would be the guy, but I haven't really studied the tight end position a whole lot this year when it comes to the New York Giants, unfortunately, even though they are my team. It's just like, I know I'm probably going to avoid that situation because it's going to be like one of those, well, I drafted this guy, but it ends up being this guy instead.
Well, isn't that a strategy you can try, like on the Scott Fish Bowl, like draft if you have back-to-back picks, so you could take Ty and Donnell like really, really late, and the benefit is you get the winner, and then you get that glorious roster spot to pick up, whoever's available. Who's this year's who was that receiver for the Packers last year? Like, I feel like half the leagues last year.
Ty Montgomery.
People spent $100 of their money on him.
Devontae Adams.
No, it was the guy that got off waivers last year. Like, he was cut by the Giants.
Oh,
and then he ended up having like 10 touchdowns.
James
Jones. Oh, was it? James Jones. Well,
James Jones.
And then there was the special teams guy. They had 2.
If you got him and was really excited, he did kind of tail off at the end, but he was good. He was good while it lasted. I mean, I got Deion Lewis because I'm pretty sure that Melvin Gordon was my RB1 last year in the Scott Fish Bowl. I was really, really struggling. I almost wish you could do 1 running back in a way because you can do 2. But I
still wonder what James Jones went, because I put like a $25 bid in on him, and I thought, I'm bidding high. I'm going to get him. And Lord, I don't think I was even close. So apparently he went pretty pricey.
That's another underrated aspect of the Scott Fish Bowl is that waivers are closed until, is it the beginning of week 1 or after week 1? I can't remember exactly.
After week 1.
After week 1. So like you really can't do anything to your roster.
I couldn't replace Jordy Nelson until after that first game, and it was like, ugh.
It was so like that.
You just have all off season to absorb every piece of fantasy news that comes out, so that once the waivers do open up, you're just all the top guys. You're gonna have to spend most of your budget in week 1 to get them. So it's almost, Scott Fish mentioned this on the 2QBs podcast. Kind of just like take week 1 off of waivers, let everybody else spend their money, and just dive in on week 2 or after the frenzy's over.
Well, that's what I ended up doing, but it was only because apparently I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, $25. That's good, You
have to take your shots, and it's a little bit different than other leagues that do free agent bucks, just because it is relatively thin. But if anybody, it's basically after like week 4, if someone with a pulse is available, you pick them up. I mean, if a quarterback gets hurt, you're like, ooh. I mean, that's the thing about quarterbacks. I mean, that's why I like the super flex, because you can start 1 if you want, but you should start 2, and quarterback is so deep that I think that's the way to go. It's the way of the future, but do you have any like 3 quarterback leagues? Have people gone to that?
I've seen 2 quarterbacks in a flex. 2 quarterbacks in a super flex, so basically 3 QB. I think you can do 3 QB if the league is 8 or 10 teams, because you're doing either 24 starting or 30. I mean, some people might think you're crazy to do a like a 10-team 3-quarterback league. I think you can pull it off though, but the safer route would probably be the 8-team, and just be like super deep rosters everywhere. Like start as many running backs, receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks as you can.
Well, I mean, one thing about Scotty Fish Bowl is you don't get the negative points for interception. So if you start whoever the Cleveland quarterback is every week, you're still going to get probably 10 points a week. I mean, that's not a small amount.
Speaking of Isaiah Crowell, he went after I took Gary Barnage. He went next at 8.03, and then Zach Ertz went 8.04.
It's weird. Like in our league, Isaiah Crowell made it to like the 11th round. I think people were like remembering, oh yeah, the receivers, and they all went like in the 10th, 11th round, and oh yeah, there are all these running backs who are backups and high upside guys. I don't know, Sal, if you have your choice, do you go for the like handcuff guy, or are you like, well, how about that third down back who's actually going to get me some points every week?
I'd rather take that third down back who's going to get me points rather than handcuffing a guy I might not use at all during the year.
You heard it here first. Sal is not a handcuff guy, but he is a two quarterback at the same time guy. So what does two quarterbacks have in store for us this fall? You guys going to take a little vacation after the Scott Fish Bowl and then start kicking in?
No, we've already kind of moved on from the Scott Fish Bowl coverage. We might have a day 2, day 3 recap piece coming out tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. We still have the ADP that's updated. That's kind of been the big thing everybody's been going for. But we're just going back to covering all aspects of two quarterbacks in Superflex leagues. We're going to focus on doing some more draft recaps, pumping out some more quarterback profiles, looking at some depth chart battles. Basically just trying to get everybody ready for their two quarterback draft.
Darn right. It's good stuff. So Van, so is there as much love for the NFL up north, or are you a kind of a strange person because you're into this Southern League?
The one thing I've learned about Vancouver is that it is a very heavy bandwagon sports town. So if the Vancouver Canucks are doing good, everybody loves the Vancouver Canucks. If the Vancouver Canucks suck, everybody hates the Vancouver Canucks and don't consider themselves a hockey fan. Luckily, I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, so I don't have to worry about jumping on.
I should have worn my jersey 2 weeks in a row. That's right.
That's a sweet jersey. I saw it last week. I wish I had one of those.
I still have. Let me not blind everyone with it. My cup runneth over, except for this cup. It's empty. Anyway.
But jumping back to the bandwagon thing, because we live close to Seattle, so there's a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans in Vancouver. So it's starting to trickle down here, but it's not as great as it would be if I lived in an American town.
But it's a lovely place. I mean, I was in Seattle 15 years ago, and I kind of went on and did a little train day trip. Got to hang out, get some Blue Rodeo CDs, do the Canadian thing, because, that's what you do, ride the ferry and all that. So we'll have to get back up and do our Northwest tour. We really need to do going for 2 on the road. I think that'd be awesome.
Well, if you come to
every NFL town, yeah.
Yes.
Tailgate, baby.
I've been to a game in Seattle. It was fun.
Yeah, it seems like they have a really great crowd up there.
It's a good stadium. So as we're getting toward the hour mark, Sal, tell people where to find you, like online, your site, your podcast, breakfast cereal, Twitter handle, all that good stuff.
Sure, they can find me on Twitter at 2QBFFB. Our website is patrickswayze.com. That will redirect you to 2QBs.com, TWOQBS. On Twitter, we're at TWOQBS, 2QBs. Like I said, it's myself, Joshua Lake, Greg Sauce, Greg Smith. We are the co-founders of the site. We've got a pretty sweet staff. It's small, but we've been pumping out a lot of content this year. We have Anthony Amico. We have a newcomer in Ben Cummins. And the great thing is we've been having a lot of guest content lately because there's a lot of people out there that want to write about two quarterback leagues, but their sites don't really cover it, so we've been able to get them on board with us. Nice.
And there's lots of Lots of people dying to add to the content. So Sharona, you're back in line with your show.
Yes,
We
yes.
didn't spoil your Miko Grimes talk. Sorry, that didn't come up tonight, but that's a topic that I hope you give quality time to this week.
I'm trying to get our buddy Mike to come to record a segment with me so that we can talk about Tom Brady. It got very interesting in my Twitter.
We didn't talk about Tom Brady at all that much. A little bit. Fantasy.
It got very interesting in my Twitter mentions last night because I just made a comment that I could understand why people were avoiding, Tom Brady because of the 4-game suspension and Father Time being undefeated and all of that. And listen, Tom Brady stands, and I see that I got quite a few follows from some of you guys over the course of the past 24 hours. I love you, okay? I do, but, I am sorry to have to tell you that, yes, Old Man Time has faced Tom Brady before. In every generation, Old Man Time has faced a great athlete and ultimately won, and Old Man Time's going to win at some point. I don't know if it's this year. I just think that you have to be smart and consider where you take Tom Brady right now, because I think that there's a good question about what's going to happen there. So anyway, I'm trying to get Mike to come on so we can have that discussion and talk about SFB 480. I'm going to talk about Miko Grimes and some more hot gaming talk, because you guys know I can't quit. And so we'll see what else. There's been a lot going on. I'm sure I'll find something to talk about.
And why should you quit?
I'm back. Took a long hiatus, and so it's good to be back. Oh, I think I'm going to be making a writing announcement fairly soon, so stay tuned in for that.
Don't tell me until it's official.
I won't tell you, Zach, because you cannot keep a secret.
I cannot do it. The best part is usually I funnel people to Zach Law Online, but really it's 2QBs.com. That's where all the interviews are. I've been trying to funnel more people over there. I just got the street free agent to post. Just some people were like, hey, how come you didn't ask me? Sal was smart. The brain trust of 2 quarterbacks was smart to not try to interview everybody like I did last year and just start with a group of people where you're like, I know they'll respond, their names you want to hear. And then if anybody else, give everybody else the option, but, find us. And I think it worked out well, because it can be a little crazy trying to be a completist.
We ended up, I think, with 44 interviews, and for anybody that wants to go read all of them, they can do that at 2QBs.com/author/Zach Law.
We'll tweet out a link to the website when the show is over.
I am an author, people. I'm an author, and I need to go take care of my poor cats who've been body slamming the door for the past hour.
Sal, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you'll come back.
Yeah, sure. As long as Zach asks me, I'll come back on. Just one more thing before I leave.
What if I ask you? Would you come back on if I ask you?
I'll be on tomorrow if you want.
Oh, okay.
Oh, look at that. Back to back.
One thing I want to mention before we leave, we see how much work Scott Fish puts into this football, running by himself, and how much he cares about getting donations for Toys for Tots. So a couple of us on Twitter, myself, Curtis Patrick, Chub McGrubb, Robert Marino, we came up with the idea to create SFB t-shirts with the proceeds going to Toys for Tots. So if anybody out there wants to support Scott, Toys for Tots, they can go to www.booster.com/SFB480 and get themselves a t-shirts with proceeds going to Marine Toys for Tots.
Yeah, Scott, thank you so much. We can never thank you enough for all the time and effort that you put into for such a wonderful, wonderful thing for fantasy football players.
And Scott's crazy, and he's kind of crazy. And after this draft, I'm in that other league, the one that has the 4 levels, and I'm on the lowest. And there are only 48 teams in that league. Boo, how boring, right? Damn, everything's crazy. But, yes, thanks again, Sal, for being on. Thanks, Sharona, for, putting up with the lawn mowing shenanigans.
Sal, I'm sorry
and
I got all choked
a
up
basketball
about Tim
question.
I know.
I'm like, who's the interviewer? Make Charlie Rose makes everybody cry. Yeah, that's what I try to do. Even my own co-host cries every time I open one of my fruity beers. so tasty and it's so summery and it just feels right.
I almost had a cider, but I went
cider.
A cider, but I went with this Taproom Amber Ale. It's very good.
See,
Recommend
stay local.
Oh, okay.
So and now we have the she's being picked up by the cops. So thanks again, Sal and Sharona, for moving on. And as we like to end the show, kiss my grits, Don Funk.
Oh, hi, Don.